Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Chaitanya. Ah, good morning. Krishna. Oh my. Woo. Okay, got a new toy here. Ta-da! Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh. So there's a lot going on here in this area, Gainesville, Florida area. There's chanting. There's chanting on the street corners practically every day. Well, not every day, but getting there. There's chanting in the homes. There's just chanting going on everywhere. And wow. It's interesting to see how, because of the different personalities and consciousness of the different devotees in the area, how the different little communities are developing around the consciousness of those particular devotees. And it's fascinating. It's a miracle. It's wonderful to see the Krishna consciousness manifesting in little, like, micro communities. So the challenge is how to respect each other and work together and appreciate each other for the service that everyone's doing. But the chanting is just going on. It's amazing. Oh, Krishna, we need more, that's all. Just more Hare Krishna chanting. Out on the street corner yesterday afternoon during rush hour. So here there's not much foot traffic because it's pretty much a rural area. But there are some intersections where a lot of cars will go. And they have to stop because there's a light. So there they were. And I get to hold the sign, this really big sign, because I don't know how much the people could actually hear whizzing by in their cars, when the light changed. But they could see the sign, Hare Krishna, the chant, and they could see devotees jumping up and down, playing musical instruments, and very excited about something or other. So they put two and two together. Oh, Hare Krishna. So they even read the sign. Then they get Hare Krishna. They read the sign. The sign's telling them what? Hare Krishna. This is a lot of fun, actually. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar. So I need to practice on this. Hare Krishna. Hare There's more to that particular tune, but I'll have to try and figure it out later. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Krishna, Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi, Gaura Bhaktivinoda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Oh boy, what fun, I tell you. Wow. Yeah. Wow, Krishna. Yeah, it's all about the chanting. Especially together. That's when it really takes off. San Kirtan. Kirtan is chanting, and San, from what I understand, means together. So San Kirtan. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. That's when everything really starts to sparkle and shine. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. So I'm going to read a little something about Krishna from the 10th canto, summary study of the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. It was the pure cries of Advaita Goswami that brought Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally to the planet 500 years ago. It was his cries. He was worshipping Shalagram Shila with tulsi leaves and Ganga water and making loud cries. Please come, only you, personally, you have to come personally, can deliver the fallen souls. You can give this precious gift of pure love of Godhead. Only you can do that. No one else can do that. Actually, Advaita is an incarnation of a Vishnu form of the Lord. And he realized his own limitations, that he couldn't actually give love of God, ecstatic love of God, as is found in Vrindavan atmosphere. That he realized he couldn't give that. He prayed, "You please come," his loud cries. And the Lord came. I forget where it is, but there was some humorous exchange where the Lord said, "It's because of the cries of this old man I came." This old man was calling me, so I came. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Such is the potency of pure devotion, and we see that in His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. because of his chanting and his glorification, his appeals to the Lord. We have the books, we have the teachings, we have the instructions, we have access to the parampara, the Guru Parampara, because of his devotion. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And there was a little bit of discussion in a meeting last night online, a Zoom meeting, and a question came up. Actually, I asked it. I said, well, what if someone doesn't have a specific instruction from their spiritual master? They don't have a specific, I want you to build a temple, or I want you to go to this country, or what if they don't have anything specific? And the discussion took off from there that we have general instructions, and how those general instructions expand out, the Lord guides us from within the heart. We chant Hare Krishna, avoid certain sinful activities that will entangle us in the modes of material nature, and hear about Krishna, and wherever possible, Lord Chaitanya gave the general instruction, wherever you go, whoever you meet, tell them about Krishna, Krishna's instructions. So how far out we expand that, what form that takes, according to our individual natures, our individual personalities, that's for us to expand out and go as far with it as possible as we can. So we have most of us have general instructions. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And then the speaker pointed out that even Prabhupada had more or less a general instruction from his spiritual master to, if ever you get money, print books. It's kind of a, especially in English, it's kind of a general instruction. I mean, it has some specifics to it, but how you do it, what books, it's kind of open in some ways. So the Lord from without will give guidance. He put pressure from outside to do something, and then from inside he gives guidance. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So we're all having to serve the pure devotee who is on a very elevated level of devotion, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, a very elevated Krishna level of surrender and devotion to Krishna, in a kind of mood of separation. So we're having to enter into the spirit of devotion that Prabhupada was manifesting. We're having to enter into the spirit of devotion. Hare Krishna, Hare. I think our Christian friends understand how this works when you worship in the spirit. So we're having to worship in the spirit of Prabhupada's devotion. Hare Krishna, feeling his separation. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Anyone who reads his books also has access to his spirit of devotion. He said, I put everything in my books, I'm in my books. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So how we expand out from that, according to our own individual natures and our abilities and our propensities, how we expand out from that, that's very individual. And the Lord within the heart gives guidance. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. At least that's what I'm looking at now. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. And I'm seeing it manifest too in the different micro communities. And sometimes people say, oh, they're just clicks. No, they're not clicks. It's not a clique. There are certain moods manifesting in different groups of devotees according to like mind. It's not all one. There's variety. Even in the spiritual sky, there are different planets. There are different Vaikuntha lokas with different moods. The Lord is manifest a little bit differently there, according to the residents. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare. So that makes me eager to visit these different groups. I want to visit. I want to see what everybody's doing. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hang on to Narada Muni's dhoti. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, enough nonsense. Time to hear from Srila Prabhupada. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya. And this is where, oops, wrong glasses. Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya. Krishna defeats all the princes. This is chapter 53. He's just rescued Rukmiṇī from being married off by her brother Rukmiṇī out of his enviousness of Krishna. Everyone knew that Rukmiṇī is meant to be with Krishna. She's a personification of devotion. She's the goddess of fortune. She's Krishna's eternal companion. So this is a pastime of marrying Rukmiṇī. They're always together, but they're marrying Rukmiṇī. And Rukmiṇī is the antagonist. So he has Hare Krishna. He's trying to soothe the situation. Balaram is there, and he's acting as a spiritual master. He's trying to calm everybody down because Rukmi's army has been destroyed as he tried to stop Krishna from taking Rukmiṇī. Krishna kidnapped her. He tried to stop him. But he wasn't killed. He was simply had his hair and his mustaches all clipped off and made him look kind of funny, weird, which is really insulting for a Kshatriya, big, powerful warrior, to make him look silly. It was he was mortified that first of all, that he'd been defeated and captured, and then second of all, made to look really stupid and silly. And he had taken a vow not to return to his capital city if he didn't defeat Krishna, and he failed. So he went off to a hermitage somewhere and spent the rest of his life there, not living in royal style, but like a hermit, more or less. So Rukmiṇī's very upset now because that was her brother. So it's all family now. Krishna and Balaram. Balaram's the brother-in-law. Krishna's married Rukmiṇī, and so it's all family, and Rukmiṇī was part of the family. So Rukmiṇī's all upset about her brother, that he only had my welfare at heart. He was just misguided. Whatever he did out of love for me. But actually, he did it out of hatred for Kṛṣṇa. He didn't really do it out of love for her so much. But she took it that he thought that Sishupal was a better man, better match for her, and that's why he did that. But actually he did it because he hated Kṛṣṇa. But such is the soft-heartedness. We see that a lot in the different ladies in Krishna Lila. We see they're very soft-hearted, and they can overlook the most heinous activities and only see something positive there, even if it isn't like actually positive, even if it isn't actually there. Or only minutely, possibly, but not really there. So that's the way Rukmiṇī was. She took it that he was simply doing that out of concern for her. So Balaram is giving a lot of moral instruction and about consciousness, about we're not these bodies. He gave a lot of spiritual knowledge. It was quite extensive. We read that last time, so we'll continue on here. In this way, Sri Balaram instructed them in spiritual knowledge. Well, Balaram even chastised Kṛṣṇa. He said, "Why did you do that? That was a terrible thing to do, just to make Rukmiṇī feel better." Okay, so he says, "Sweet smiling Rukmiṇī, do not be aggrieved for false motives caused by ignorance. Due to false notions only, one becomes unhappy. But this unhappiness is immediately removed by discussing the philosophy of actual life. Be happy on that platform only." After hearing such enlightening instruction from Sri Balaram, Rukmiṇī immediately became pacified and happy, and adjusted her mental condition, which was very much afflicted by seeing the degraded position of her brother Rukmiṇī. As far as Rukmiṇī was concerned, neither was his promise fulfilled, nor his mission successful. He had come from home with his soldiers and military phalanx to defeat Kṛṣṇa and release his sister, but on the contrary, he lost all his soldiers and military strength. He was personally much degraded, and in that condition he was very sorry. But by the grace of the Lord, he could continue his life to the fixed destination. In other words, he now had a chance to perfect his life, the fixed destination. Because he was a Kshatriya, he could remember his promise that he would not return to his capital city Kundina without killing Kṛṣṇa and releasing his sister, which he had failed to do. Therefore he decided in anger not to return to his capital city, and he constructed a small cottage in the village known as Bhojakata and began to reside there for the rest of his life, which is kind of what Arjuna wanted to do rather than fight the battle of Kurukshetra. And Kṛṣṇa reminded him, well, if you don't, you'll be known as a coward, you'll be in disgrace, which is kind of what happened to Rukmiṇī. Although he wasn't a coward, he felt disgraced. After defeating all the opposing elements and forcibly carrying away Rukmiṇī, Kṛṣṇa brought her to his capital city, Dvārakā, and then married her, according to the Vedic ritualistic principle. This is first queen. After this marriage, Kṛṣṇa became the king of the Yadus at Dvārakā. A lot going on here. New queen, and now he's the king. On the occasion of his marriage with Rukmiṇī, all the inhabitants were happy, and in every house there were great ceremonies. The inhabitants of Dvārakā city became so pleased that they dressed themselves with the nicest possible ornaments and garments, and they went to present gifts according to their means to the newly married couple. They have a king and a queen. They're on easy street. Kṛṣṇa and Rukmiṇī. All the houses of Yadupuri, Dvārakā, so that's another name for Dvārakā, is Yadupuri. were decorated with flags, festoons, and flowers. Each and every house had an extra gate specifically prepared for this occasion. And on both sides of the gate there were big water jugs filled with water. They constructed gates, extra gates. And on either side there were jugs filled with water. The whole city was flavored by the burning of high-quality incense, and at night there was illumination by thousands of lamps decorating each and every building. Wow, you know how during Christmas time, at least in the Western world, like here in the States, I mean, there's lights everywhere. People really get into it, putting all these lights up. And you can drive around for hours just looking at the display, Christmas lights. So here they had a similar kind of thing going on, but they didn't have electricity. They didn't need it. But it's illuminated by lamps decorating each and every building. Wow, must be quite a sight. The entire city appeared jubilant on the occasion of Lord Kṛṣṇa's marriage with Rukmiṇī. Everywhere in the city there was profuse decorations of banana trees, betel nut trees. These two trees are considered very auspicious in happy ceremonies. Now that's interesting because if you look at the Christmas celebrations, also there are many trees that are used to decorate within the homes, and sometimes in the public squares a big tree is decorated. So here they're decorating with banana trees and betel nut trees. At the same time, there was an assembly of many elephants who carried respective kings of different friendly kingdoms. It is the habit of the elephant that whenever he sees some small plants and trees, out of his sportive, frivolous nature, he uproots the trees and throws them hither and thither. That's not very nice. Bad elephant, bad elephant. The elephants assembled on this occasion also scattered banana and betel nut trees. But in spite of such intoxicated action, the whole city, with the trees thrown here and there, looked very nice. And I'm a little uncomfortable. Poor banana trees, betel nut trees. Anywho, the friendly kings of the Kurus and Pandavas were represented by Dhritarashtra, the 5 Pandu brothers, King Drupada, King Santarnana, as well as Rukmiṇī's father Bhishmaka. Because of Krishna's kidnapping, Rukmiṇī, there was initially some misunderstanding between the two families. But Bhishmaka, king of Vidarbha, being approached by Sri Balaram and persuaded by many saintly persons, was induced to participate in the marriage ceremony of Kṛṣṇa and Rukmiṇī. Yeah, King Bhishmaka, he undoubtedly was feeling some unhappiness. The kingdom was to go to his eldest son Rukmiṇī, who was now taken a vow of kind of austerity out in the forest, in a little cottage somewhere, vowing never to take up his royal kingdom again. So that was awkward. And also Kṛṣṇa swooped into the middle of the marriage procession and kidnapped Rukmiṇī before the final vows could be taken. And that made a mess out of all the preparations and ceremonies that had in the kingdom of Vidarbha. Was all happy Rukmiṇī was coming there, and then she didn't come there. So yeah, Rukmiṇī's father was undoubtedly feeling distress. But Balaram and many saintly persons persuaded him to participate in the ceremony. So again, Balaram went to speak in such a way as to enlighten and encourage who he was speaking to. to take shelter of Kṛṣṇa and come to the marriage ceremony. Although the incident of Krishna's kidnapping was not a very happy occurrence in the kingdom of Vidarbha, kidnapping was not an unusual affair among the Kshatriyas. So it's not like it never happened before. Kshatriyas did stuff like that. Kidnapping was, in fact, current in all marriages. There would have been something wrong if there hadn't been a kidnapping, I guess. Anyway, King Bhishmaka was from the very beginning inclined to hand over his beautiful daughter to Kṛṣṇa. In one way or another, his purpose had been served, and so he was pleased to join the marriage ceremony, even though his eldest son was degraded in the fight. It is mentioned in the Padma Purana that Maharaj Nanda and the cowherd boys of Vrindavan joined the marriage ceremony. Kings from the kingdoms of Kuru, Srinjaya, Kikaya, Vidarbha, and Kunti came to Dvārakā on this occasion with all their royal paraphernalia. So everyone's coming from everywhere to participate in the marriage ceremony of Kṛṣṇa and Rukmiṇī. Now when Kṛṣṇa appears as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the mood of separation of Radharani, devotees are coming from everywhere to participate in that also. That's a little different mood, a little different pastime. But just like they're all coming from all these different kingdoms, and they're even coming from Vrindavan to take part in the marriage ceremony of Kṛṣṇa and Rukmiṇī, they're coming from all over the creation, all over different parts of the material creation as well as the spiritual world, to take part in Lord Chaitanya's pastime. This is Krishna's pastime in Dvārakā, and Lord Chaitanya's pastime is actually taking place in part of Vrindavan. And they're coming from everywhere to take part in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, which is predicted in Scripture to be manifest for about 10,000 years. And we're about 500 years into it now. So there's a golden age coming of Lord Chaitanya. We're right in the beginning. How exciting. Hare Krishna. The story of Rukmiṇī's being kidnapped by Kṛṣṇa was poeticized, and the professional readers recited it everywhere. All the assembled kings, and especially their daughters, were struck with wonder and became very pleased upon hearing the chivalrous activities of Kṛṣṇa. In this way, all visitors, as well as the inhabitants of Dvārakā city, became joyful, seeing Kṛṣṇa and Rukmiṇī together. In other words, the Supreme Lord, the maintainer of everyone, and the goddess of fortune were united, and all the people felt extremely jubilant. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 53rd chapter of Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa defeats all the princes and takes Rukmiṇī home to Dvārakā. Oh, that's the end of that little chapter there. And the next one is, next time, in the next exciting adventure of Kṛṣṇa, Pradyumna, born to Kṛṣṇa and Rukmiṇī. Now I've read Prabhupada's books over the years, several times really. From beginning to end, I've read Kṛṣṇa book 3 or 4 times, beginning to end. And every time, it's more and more blissful, more and more ecstatic, more and more relishable. So, yeah, Kṛṣṇa. It's almost like reading it for the first time every time, although it isn't. I think people who are in love, they experience that. They every time they meet, it's not the first time, but it feels like it's the first time. Kṛṣṇa.